Good morning. Obviously not a good week for us defensively, and I'm talking about defensively overall. That's in the run game and the pass game, but most notably in the run game. And execution, technique, assignment, just a number of things involved in that situation. And we talked about them. We had a really good practice yesterday. We're going to have a good practice today, and we're going to move forward because that's the one thing that we've been pretty good at is playing run defense, dating back to the Giants game. So this was very uncharacteristic of our players, right, to have a game like this. And I don't expect a game like this to ever happen again.
How do you look at a performance like that? Because you mentioned, really good run defense going into that one.
Yeah.
Probably couldn't have got a whole lot worse than what Carolina did to you. So do you chalk it up to an anomaly, or do you use it as a motivational factor? How do you approach the week after that game with your guys when it doesn't fit the recent trend?
Well, you just actually said it. You remind them of who we are and what we've been doing. And you know what? It happened. And this is NFL and things like this happen. Do you want it to happen? No. No, but we have a bunch of young guys that they have to understand. They got to keep their confidence exactly where it was as far as playing really good defense. And we got to continue to move in that direction. So I can easily sit here or in the meeting room and yell and rant about this one game. The thing is we have to move past it and understand exactly what we've been doing and go in that direction.
Is there anything schematically in that performance that you look back and you, I don't know, regret is the right word, but feel like you need to adjust
Not at
going
all.
forward?
Not at all. Obviously, as a coach, the first thing you look at is yourself. All right. But when you're just playing down safety defense, when that's been the talk the whole week as far as stopping the run, because we know exactly who they are. As a coach, we're always going to look at ourselves. And we're always going to be in the fight with the players. We're never going to separate ourselves as far as players, it's on you, and coaches, we're out of it. So obviously we have some issues with that as far as what we want to do, right? But, man, the technique and execution and just assignment has got to be better.
You faced Justin Fields and the Bears' #1 rushing
Yeah.
offensively. A little different style, obviously, than what Carolina does. They use Fields and the quarterback a lot more. I'm just curious, Aaron, when you're preparing for an opponent like that, obviously the Week 10 tapes, the first one you look at, but
Yeah.
how much do you take elements of maybe what other teams have done successfully against them? And I know it's different personnel, different scheme. Buffalo, for example, last week, what they were able to do. How much of that do you look at and maybe try to fit a little bit into maybe what you can do, or is it different?
You do that to a certain extent because everybody have different players too, so sometimes, on the outside world, people say that, but they don't take everything into consideration. And as a coach, as a player, you understand that. No one else understands that. But you do really do that. I think that's a smart thing to do is see how other teams have attacked them. And you try to fit your players and your scheme to be able to do some of those things, but you can't go so far out of what you do to try to emulate another team.
Last week, Kirby going into that game was your most experienced safety right now. It's just the start of the week, but both he and Deshaun are not practicing to start the week. So can you just explain the strain it puts on a defense with that position being so inexperienced?
Yeah. You know what? That's injuries are part of this league, and it's the biggest equalizer in this league. And the one thing that we try to do, and you guys heard me say this before, is, man, everybody practices, everybody's in the meeting, and everybody's expected to step up when your time is called. So is it a strain? Yeah, absolutely it is, because those guys don't really get all the reps that they should get, and that's just how this NFL is. So in the meeting, we got to be ready. CJ got to be ready. Iffy got to be ready. If we call on those guys to have to get ready to play for us, they got to get ready to play. But absolutely it's a strain.
Thoughts to possibly shifting Will back, just given his experience and, as we've talked about multiple times, just his overall knowledge of every position in that defense?
Once you start moving these pieces around, now it puts a strain somewhere else. So again, that's another deal that people don't really understand. They think it's just fit people all over the place, and that's not the way it works, because now you have another guy that hasn't played, and he has to do the same thing. So but that's a good point, and those are things that we look at. But again, man, we don't want to take a strain somewhere else when the guy's been in the meeting. He's been doing that for the most part, and Will's been playing out nickel for the most part. So we want to try to keep him in this spot as much as we can.
Okay, Jeff and Jerry have been so good all year long of coming down and helping in the run game and setting edges, being real good on the outside. Was that just kind of an anomaly last week with those two?
It was tough. It was tough because, again, those guys have been really, really stout when it comes to that. And, again, I will say this. We're not going to beat those guys up over this one game that happened because you already said it. Consistently, those guys have been really good at doing it. So we want to keep their confidence as much as we can to show them games before, my guys, you've done this, for the most part for the past 6 weeks. So we want to continue to move in that direction, and they will do that.
Do you even have to have a conversation with someone like Jeff, who's gone through a lot of adversity?
Say it again.
Do you even have to have like a sit down with Jeff or anything like that? Since he's
I sit down with all our players. I sit down with the whole defense, especially with the situation we just had. So I have a conversation with all of them.
Like individually, you don't have to.
I have a conversation with all those guys individually.
What has the focus been with Jeff, after he came off a little more in the second half last week?
Say it again.
What has been the focus with Jeff this week after he came off a little more in that second half?
Consistency, for the most part. Consistency. And he's been pretty good with that. In the game, he was struggling a bit. The thing that we want to make sure we do is we want to make sure we save the player. And instead of letting that game continuously go down, we want to end up putting Mike in because Mike deserves to play also because Mike's been playing pretty good for us too. So, and I've said this every week, man, guys earn their right to play. And Mike has earned his right to play. And at that time, I felt it was good for him, a good idea for him to go in and play.
When you look at this Bears offense now compared to where it was the last time you played, compared to where it was when you started watching film on them at the beginning of the year, how have they evolved just over the course of this year?
Well, I would say this. I remember the first time we played those guys, man, they were on a roll as far as going they were like 30 points a game or something like that. It tailed off a little bit because, again, this is the NFL and things like that happen. The outside world don't understand why, but teams start to scheme against them and start to take some of those things away. But the elements are still there. They have some injuries also that they're dealing with at the receiver spot. But the elements of what they do and how they operate is still there. And especially when you have that quarterback who's able to make plays with his feet and has the arm talent to get the ball down the field, man, we got to be on our P's and Q's. And we cannot be undisciplined as far as our alignments, our assignments, and then especially the technique on how we played that guy from the first time.
When a team runs zone read, I think we become fixated on the defensive end just because they're the read player. But how important is the defensive tackle next to them and make sure they hold their position, not widening responsibility?
That's an important position because now if you're stout, if you can hold your position, like it limits the amount of space that the defensive end has got to be able to play as far as taking the gap away and being able to play the quarterback. So anytime you see that play and you see a lot of movement, man, that's going to be an issue, because most of those guys, I mean, there are not a lot of Cam Jordans or whatnot playing a defensive end that's uber athletic, that's 280 pounds that can do that. So it all fits together. It all fits together. The D tackle, you can't get washed, and the DN, man, you got to do a good job of surfing, maybe able to take the gap away, and then being able to play on the quarterback.
Is there obvious reads, I guess, for the defensive tackle on those plays that they should be looking out for?
They feel as far as blocking concepts. All right, if the guard's going away from him, how he's playing back into the tackle. If the guards are hitting him, how he's hipping into the tackle. So all those things come into it as far as playing that technique.
For Justin Fields in particular, what did you learn about facing him the first time that you hope you can take into Sunday, and how much of that is like an X factor in winning the game?
He is the X factor for that team, and it shows all over the tape. The number one thing that we learned is how strong this player is, and we had him wrapped up a couple of times in that game. We missed the tackle on him. And listen, he's an athletic player. He's going to make some plays. I mean, that's just the crux. He's going to do that. The things that we have to do is be able to eliminate the big plays that he's able of making. He made a couple of plays against us. So we have to do everything in our power to be able to stop those plays. And I'm not just talking about him running. I'm talking about him passing the ball also.
Cole Kmet, the tight end, had a season high against you guys last last time they played. What was he doing that was effective, and can you take that away this summer?
Well, we had a bust in the back end on one of them, so that was just us. That had nothing to do with him. And then the other play that he had, he just beat Kirby one-on-one. He beat our rookie.
I know Dan's brought him up multiple times. Brockers, we kind of know his situation.
Yeah.
You guys have gone with the youth movement there, but it seems like he's still played a really important role behind the scenes. So just your perspective as a defensive coach, maybe the respect that you have for the way he's responded to that. How has Mike kind of stayed in a leadership role despite not playing?
Just Brock in general, how he's – listen, when it comes to that defensive line room, and all those guys will tell you this, that he is the ultimate leader. He's very unselfish. He's a team guy. He's the first guy that's up on the scout team to give the guys a look. And I'll talk to guys how important it is for a scout team of giving looks, and he understands that. And I think he shows that on the field to let the young guys know how important it is. So his words of encouragement, his leadership as far as being there, done that, and understand it, we don't have too many guys like that. And he's the one guy that has been there. He's won a lot of games in his career, has played that position for a long time. So for him to be able to talk to Pascal, him to be able to talk to Bugs, Mac, all those guys, I mean, it's important to have that guy in the room for us.